Hello, and welcome to my presentation on the Rise of the Hobbyist and whether it's a sustainable future for music. And before we get into it, I remember, Jill, that you were saying on our previous lecture that you wanted to see some faces. So here's a photo of me, so you can imagine this absolute mug doing this presentation. So as I was looking at the brief for this assessment, topic 4 stood out to me the most, as it got me thinking straight away, as it would not only affect my peers' futures, but my future as well. It instantly raised a few questions about how and why music were going in this direction. The first question that I wanted to answer was, what actually is a hobbyist? A hobbyist is somebody who partakes in a certain hobby and is not dependent on the money they make from it. That could be anything from sports to painting, but obviously, in this case, it's making music. Over the past couple of years, the image of a hobbyist has changed. Before, when you think of a hobbyist, you think of somebody with an acoustic guitar sat at the end of their bed playing their favourite songs. However, now you think more of somebody with a small audio interface, a MIDI keyboard, some speakers, and possibly some LED lights to go with it. This has probably come about due to a lowering of prices of studio quality equipment, making recording a lot more easier than it used to be. As 30 plus years ago, you'd have had to go into a studio and pay for your time rather than sit at your desk. So why has there been a rise in hobbyists? Well, it's probably down to the fact that everything you need to record a track, such as an audio interface, microphone, mic stands, XLR, the DAW you need to produce the track itself, they have become a lot cheaper, making such a high quality studio recording a lot more accessible to the everyday individual, which as a whole makes it a lot more enticing for somebody to want to take up music as a hobby. Personally, I use the equipment on the right hand side of the slide. The audio interface comes with one XLR input, one jack input. The bundle also comes with a set of studio headphones and a microphone. Around a decade ago, this was unthinkable to be able to buy this equipment for such a low price. For an example of easy accessibility, most people who live in my university house all own a Focusrite, and half of the people who live there are doing a film course. Now, more than ever, it is easier for hobbyists to actually release their own music. Thanks to services such as DistroKid, you don't need to be spotted by a label representative, as anyone can now pay a yearly fee for their work to be uploaded to any streaming service of their own choice. DistroKid is known as an aggregator, as mainly used to upload music to Spotify, which has 191 million users worldwide. In today's music climate, it is absolutely indispensable that artists learn how streams turn into royalties, as now streaming is the most popular way to consume music. Henry Schoonmaker from Songtrust, a music management company in New York, has written an article on how streams are turned into royalties. He starts off by saying that the song itself can be split into two halves: the master, which is the actual record itself, and the composition, which is made up of the lyrics, the chords, and the notes. It is then the job of the record label, or in this case aggregator, to collect the royalties and distribute it out to the people who deserve it. So, the master recording royalties will go to the artist and the performer on the track, and the publishing royalties are for the composition, so it will be paid to the songwriter and the publishers. Whenever a song is played digitally and not downloaded, it is considered a music stream, so it also generates performance and mechanical rights. When a song is streamed on a digital service like Spotify, the stream is technically a public performance and a mechanical reproduction. This allows the artist to collect both royalties. Not only do aggregators help collect royalties for songs, but they also help spread the word. This is because they provide a larger distribution for a hobbyist's discography. This allows hobbyists to give their audience, their friends, and their family easy access to their songs, as they will be on other streaming platforms that they will use on a day-to-day basis. However, this is bordering on DIY artists, and I'll come to speak about them more later. What makes aggregators better are that their full service can be conducted within a few minutes, making the life of a hobbyist even easier. While looking into distribution services such as DistroKid, it made me think, has the development of these services led to a decline in money made from artists' music? Nowadays, the most popular way to consume music would be through streaming services such as Spotify. However, back in the 90s, it lent more towards CDs. While reading an article on Digital Music News, I found that Spotify pays their artists somewhere between $0.003 and $0.005. However, this rate is changing all the time. In today's climate, artists are being paid more per stream rather than per unit sold. The BBC released an article in 2013 where they answered the question, if CDs cost £8, where does the money go? They said, approximately, for an £8 CD, an artist would receive £1.04, and the record company themselves would receive £2.40. So, will an artist receive more money per stream or per CD? To figure this out, I'd have to transfer the previously mentioned rate into pounds. This gave me the answer of £0.002 to £0.004. And on average, every album is 10 songs long, so I multiplied this rate by 10 to give me the answer 2p to 4p. Which means that on estimate, artists will make less money off streaming than they will on physical copies. A real life example of an artist getting paid little money from a streaming service is the most annoying overplayed song of 2014, Happy by Pharrell Williams. When released on Pandora, an American streaming service, it racked up to a rather impressive 43 million streams in the first quarter of 2014. According to an email from music publisher and Sony ATV CEO Marty Bandia, Pharrell Williams only made $2,700 from the track, which to me just seems unfair. However, this is an extreme case and does not happen to every single artist, and music is being played more and more every single day as it is more accessible due to free online streaming platforms. With artists receiving less money from streams, they've had to find other sources of income. For example, the past few years have seen an increase in older ways to consume music coming back. The NME have released a figure of 2.7 million vinyl record copies have been sold this year in the UK alone. Also, the official UK chart have come out and said that 65,000 cassette copies have been sold in the first 6 months this year alone, which is a 103% increase of 2019. We are also set to top 100,000 cassettes sold for the first time since 2003. Another major alternate income source for artists is merchandise. The main item of merchandise sold by artists are t-shirts. And this started back in the 70s with a band called the Grateful Dead and a man who Billboard dubbed the guy who made concert tees cool, Del Ferrano. In the 1970s, Ferrano worked at the Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco. This is where the girlfriend of the Grateful Dead's drummer approached Bill Graham, a legendary promoter, asking him where could they sell t-shirts in the venue during their show. Bill Graham then sent her to Ferrano. In an interview with Billboard, Ferrano said the simple phrase, "Go talk to Del," changed his life. Little did he know, it changed every other band's life too. Ferrano then founded and became CEO of Sony Signatures, later renamed Signatures Network, and finally became CEO of Live Nation Merchandise, showing that his journey grew parallel with the increasing popularity of band merchandise. Nowadays, bands' merchandise sales can make from 10 to 35% of their annual income, with even some of the big hitters raking in from $300,000 to $400,000 per year. Due to the high amount of money that merch makes, I think a lot of bands need to thank Ferrano. Now with artists having to do more to increase their income, it makes life a lot harder for DIY artists. A DIY artist is somebody who does everything themselves, whether that be recording, mixing, mastering, marketing, producing, and possibly even merchandise. However, as these artists are the only people involved, 100% of the profits will go straight to them, rather than their record label. And as these kind of artists have control over everything from their Instagram account to the recordings themselves, it makes it the next logical step for any hobbyist, as they share many similarities. As if a hobbyist put on their social media that they had released some music, it would technically be a form of marketing. A famous example of DIY artist is Elliott Smith, whose first album Elliott Smith was released by himself and not through a label. However, most artists will start off as DIY artists, as they'll have to do everything themselves, as there's no one there to do it for them. For example, they'll have to find their own rehearsal spaces, own gig opportunities, and possibly even record their own demos to start with. But according to Kim Bokebinder of Medium.com, there is no such thing as a professional DIY artist, as eventually, as they grow and grow, they will need people to help them, as the weight of marketing and management would grow heavier and heavier. Having said this, London-based researchers Media conducted a report called The Changing Nature of Music Creation. This shows that the artist direct sector, which is made up of self-releasing artists that use platforms such as CD Baby and the previously mentioned DistroKid, generate $821 million in 2019. This is up 25% on the same sector of 2018. That $821 million is equal to 3.9% of the global share in recorded music of 2019. The figures released by Media just show how important hobbyists, enthusiasts, and self-releasing artists are to the music industry. On the same report, Media estimated that there were 3.7 million self-releasing artists on major digital services in 2019. So, is this a sustainable future for artists, and can they continue making a living? Well, yes and no. I say this for more than one reason. I say yes because of the major genre shift that's been happening over the last 15 to 20 years. A hobbyist is more likely to make electronic music, so some form of EDM, rap music, or the new style of pop which we see now, which is more 80s driven. An example of this would be Blinded by the Lights by The Weeknd. This is down to the equipment which is available to hobbyists. Like as I was saying before, you could have a MIDI keyboard which are now a lot more cheaper than they used to be, and definitely a lot more cheaper than buying a guitar, a bass guitar, and a drum kit. So, with it being more cost effective for hobbyists to make electronic music, this genre shift goes perfectly in their favour. Every year, a data and market measurement firm called Nielsen and Holdings conduct research into the most popular artists, albums and songs of the past year. In 2017, Nielsen found that rap overtook rock for the first time ever, being the most listened to genre of the year, meaning the days of Britpop in the 90s, the indie rock-led noughties and possibly guitar bands altogether had stood aside for a new genre to pave the way. You can even see the change in genre from the two diagrams on your screen now. On the right hand side in 2006, you can see several artists that are from guitar-based backgrounds, such as the Beatles and weirdly Nickelback. This is in contrast to the diagram on your left hand side of the screen, 2017. This table shows that the most popular artists of that year are predominantly from a rap or the new electronic pop background, with the two exceptions being Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift. This natural genre shift that is happening is a massive positive for hobbyists, as it is easier and they are more likely to make the most popular music around at the moment. Additionally, if a random member of the public were to stumble across their music if it was uploaded, then they are more likely to enjoy it and to download it or to stream it. Electronic-based music is also a lot easier to make in your bedroom, as you can use the equipment that you've paid a small price for, rather than having to go into a studio, pay for the time, and possibly even an engineer and a producer to finish off your track. So, because of the popularity of the rap and pop genres at this particular moment in time, I would say that you could have a sustainable career and could make a living out of being a hobbyist or a DIY artist, as you could make a lot of money due to the fact that the demand is there, and I'm sure it will increase further. Although, for a fully sustainable career, I do believe that you would have to do very well in your field to make enough money to live off of. I would say no to is this a sustainable future and can you make a living question due to the live gigging side of the music industry. While reading an article on the Journal of Music called 2020, Where is the Money in Today's Music World?, I stumbled across a staggering figure. In a section called Where Rock Stars Once Ruled, Murphy states that the live sector is mainly unaffected by the internet and is now currently running at an all-time high $20 billion, with ticket prices averaging at $94. However, this is including festivals. To add to this astounding figure, Goldman Sachs, a US investment group, have conducted market research into the forecasting of how the live industry will grow. They have said that the live industry will keep growing steadily to around 38 billion in 2030. Another reason why the live side of the music business is integral for an artist to be successful is because of the money that artists are starting to get out of the live shows. Further down in the article, Murphy states that due to the ticket price hike, record deals are becoming fairer, as on average, performers are now getting 12% revenue rather than the 7% in the CD boom of 1999. This is down to the panic felt by record labels and music publishers in the early 2000s. I say these stats because with hobbyists and electronic music, you think more about the tracks, about streaming or on the radio, rather than you do about the live shows, as it is harder to perform an electronic track and get the same response from the crowd as it would be to perform a more rocky track. If you were to picture a live gig or live show, you're more likely to see an image of a traditional band playing in a pub or a small music venue. Whereas if you were to think of a pop artist, you're more likely to think of a bigger concert for a more successful artist. So, to wrap things up, let's go to the questions that I showed you at the start of this presentation. Can you make a living? Well, I'd say so, if you were to do well or become successful. But then, hasn't that always been the case? Nowadays, you might need to add new strings to your bow rather than just releasing music and playing gigs. For example, you could present your songs to a more successful artist who's more likely to get more streams than you are so that they can use them at a cost. Or possibly even develop your skills learned while being a hobbyist to become a producer, or even sell merch along with your streams. So it would be possible to make a living as an artist, but it would be easier if you branched out into other sections too. Is this a sustainable future for music as a whole? I would say yes for now, especially as with the COVID-19 pandemic causing a demand in music to increase. But if it does become unsustainable, then it's not the end of the world, because with music, as one thing falls, another thing rises, as the pure nature of the music business is cyclical. And finally, where is the future of music going? Definitely the near future is in live music, as with more money being generated from the live sector, and hopefully with people being allowed out again, after a year without live music, there will definitely be a high demand for it. And that brings us to the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, thank you, and have a good day.